Hello guys, it's Aura, and today I'm going to be doing the first part in a series of tutorials to guide you through the speedrun for Sonic Colors. So in this first video, I'm going to be going over the rules of the categories, the mechanics, and the Wisps, which is everything that you'll need to know before you want to get in there and start learning the levels. So we'll start with the rules. So the two main categories are any percent and egg shuttle. The two categories are very similar. They involve you playing through all of the same levels and bosses, so there's not much difference there. But any percent involves you starting from a new save file and doing it as you normally would. There's no credit swap or anything fancy. But egg shuttle, you get a few extra advantages. There's the fact that you get to carry boost over from the previous levels, which will change stage routing a bit, as well as having all of the wisps unlocked at the start. The stage guides that I'm going to be doing after this are going to be focused on the egg shuttle routes for each stage, but most of them are very similar, so if you're planning on learning any percent, you should still watch them and you'll learn a lot. I'll try my best to mention when strategies are egg shuttle exclusive. One other difference is that you might notice that I'm actually playing on Emulator. This is for a few reasons. One, it's actually legal for the egg shuttle speedrun, as it would provide an unfair advantage for any percent since it loads faster and any percent uses real time. But egg shuttle actually uses IGT. It just adds up the stage times, and the game doesn't actually play any faster on Emulator, so it's completely fair. The other thing that'll be nice for this tutorial is that I'm going to be using this input display right here, so you can see it. You'll be able to see which buttons I'm pressing. So the only weird thing about this is the Z button. For some reason, the input display doesn't work properly, and it's mapped to the R button. But yeah, that's all we need to know before we can get into the mechanics. The first mechanic I'm going to go into is jumping. Jumping is obviously very simple, but it has a lot of applications that are very important to understand to get good at the speedrun. So for starters, there's the two types of jumping. There's the short hop that you can do by quickly tapping the A button. This preserves a lot of your speed into the air as well, so it'll be used for saving boost as well as jumping over small lips and gaps. And then there's the full jump when you hold the A button down and you get much more height, but you don't get to keep as much speed into your jump. So it'll be important to know in the levels which jumps you're supposed to be using where. Additionally, Sonic has access to a double jump in this game, which can be used by tapping the A button again after jumping. You can see it doesn't give you much more height, but it's still incredibly important. A lot of times this extra height is exactly what we need. And the double jump is very important to manipulate our momentum. So for example, I can hold backwards right before doing a double jump, and I'll just turn my momentum around. And being able to preserve your momentum in a different direction is incredibly important for a lot of the tougher skips. Additionally, you can let go of the stick and press the A button again, and it'll lose all your momentum on the spot. Not quite as useful, but it is still very helpful. Also worth noting, the homing attack will always override your double jump, so if I try to do a double jump right here, I'm just going to homing attack the pulley instead. Another application of jumping is the slope jump. So on flat ground, Sonic's highest jump is about the height of this pulley. But if I have some speed and jump off the slope, it'll give me more height. So if I use some boost to get me some more speed, I can make it all the way up here, which is significantly higher than my normal jump. So slope jumps will be used in a lot of areas to speed things up. The last application of the jump that I want to go over is the robot boost. The robot boost is used all over the run to give us a large boost in height by jumping on top of a robot's head. So for example, right here in Planet Wisp 2, I'm just going to jump on this guy and hold the A button the whole time, and I'll be able to make it all the way on top of this platform, which is quite helpful. It's important to make sure that you hold the A button the whole time, as even if I hold it until I start falling and then let go, I'm still gonna get smacked by him instead. Another way that you can also do this is by getting hit by him and then running inside of him and then jumping. That'll work too. Next up is the homing attack. The homing attack is a pretty self-explanatory mechanic. You can press the A button when you're in the air and you haven't stomped, air dashed, or boosted, and the homing attack reticle will appear on certain objects and enemies. And then you can just press the A button and Sonic will target them. It is worth noting that in this game, you can only homing attack things that are on your screen. So even though I know that this pulley is right behind me, Sonic can't homing attack it until I make it appear on screen. Lastly, the homing attack can only target in a certain angle above Sonic. So for example, here in AC2, if you land on this first platform and jump straight up, you won't actually be able to target that pulley. But if you were to do a slide jump backwards, the angle is shallow enough that Sonic will be allowed to homing attack the pulley. The next thing I want to go over is the main ways of getting speed in this game, which are the air dash and the boost. So if you have no boost meter, then pressing B on the ground will do nothing. But if you jump, you can activate the air dash by pressing B, which is the best way of getting speed if you don't have any boost. It's worth noting that if you hold the A button while you activate the air dash, you get a lot more height than if you just let go of the A button before pressing B. So this is normally preferable, as most of the time you just want to land back on the ground when you can. There are multiple ways of getting the boost. There are these capsules which have the boost Wisps in them. You can also kill certain enemies, which is normally predetermined which ones have a certain amount of boost in it. There isn't really very much randomness in terms of the boost. There are some scenarios, which I'll get into in the individual levels, but they normally don't play a very big role. So once you have the boost, you can obviously press the B button on the ground as long as you have the meter for it. And you can boost one time in the air, so if I tried to boost in the air and then do it again, it just does nothing. It's also worth noting that holding the B button to boost will drain the meter a lot slower than if you were to mash the B button and do a bunch of small boosts. So you would think that because boosting is faster, that it is preferable whenever possible, but this actually isn't true. There are some circumstances where having the air dash is preferable. Here's one scenario where the air dash is better. If you have boost here and you'd use it off the spring, you can't make it on top of this yellow block and you have to climb them. But if you run out of boost, you can use the air dash off the spring, which gives you the height to land right on top of the block and save a little bit of time. The next mechanic that I want to go over is the Stomp. It's pretty straightforward and very helpful, but it can also be very risky to use. So if you're in the air, you just press the X button, it'll send you back to the ground very fast. It can definitely speed up platforming sections by letting you land quicker. You do lose a lot of your control, and you lose a lot of your speed when you land from a Stomp. It's also worth noting that there is very few ways to cancel it. If you don't have any Wisps and you're not underwater, you basically can't cancel it. So let's say I'm here doing Aquarium Park 1 skip, and then I mess up this part to try and land over here, and then I try and Stomp, but I miss it. There's nothing I can do to cancel this, and I just have to die. Whereas if I didn't, I would have had multiple chances to save myself. So overall, it's very helpful, but you need to use it in the right spots. The next thing that I want to go over is the slide. So the slide can obviously be used to just go under low-hanging ceilings and stuff like it was intended to be used for, but it also has a few alternative use cases. The first one is that sliding gives you a very slight boost of speed if you're at a standstill. So if you wanted to do a jump from a standstill, which normally like happens after you do a stomp, you can do a slide jump to turn around and get some speed, as compared to doing normal stomp jumps, which is clearly significantly slower. One good application for this is the setup for Sweep Mountain 4 skip. You want to just go from a standstill to doing a slope jump up there, and so doing a slide jump gets you the speed you need from a standstill. Otherwise, you would need to walk to build up speed. Here I have a comparison to show that slide can also be used to conserve momentum. Here it's used to conserve the momentum from the speed pad in Aquarium Park 4, and it's pretty easy to see that it saves a lot of time, and it even saves time over boosting down that slope as well. The next thing I want to cover are the game's drift sections. You can tell if you're in a drift section because they will all pop up this S-shaped icon that you can see on the bottom of the screen right below Sonic. And what makes drift sections different is you can't boost on the ground. The B button doesn't do anything. If you want to boost, you actually have to jump first. And the reason why the B button doesn't boost on the ground is that it actually causes you to drift around corners. But as you can see, Sonic's drift trajectory is very slow. So if you want to speed it up, you can actually just mash the drift. So a lot of times it's useful to just do short drifts instead. The last basic mechanic that I want to go over is rail grinding. It works pretty similarly to how you expect it to, except for a few small differences. Firstly, Stomp actually just goes straight through rails. I don't know why, but for some reason Stomp just is not allowed to interact with rails at all. And secondly, you'll see that runners will oftentimes switch rails constantly, and that's because it doesn't just preserve your boost speed. Switching rails actually increases your speed each time. And I made a quick comparison video to make that point more clear. One important thing to note about the jump in this game is that it actually takes a few frames to come out. And what that means is that if you're trying to run forward and do a jump at the edge of a platform, Sonic is able to run off during the few frames of his jump animation, and that makes it so that certain jumps have smaller input windows than you think they do. And it would make sections like this in Aquarium Park 2 very scary, as you're very likely to run off of a platform as you're trying to start up a jump. Luckily, this game actually has a mechanic that helps us work around these smaller input windows for jumps, and it's called jump buffering. So if you input a jump a few frames before Sonic lands, he does a jump on the first frame possible. So for example, when landing from these stomps, you can slow it down to see that I'm pressing the A button a few frames before landing, and Sonic's still going to jump right when he lands. And so I'll show you a short section of Aquarium Park 2 to see what jump buffering looks like in action. The next thing I want to go over is just a bit of practical advice on how to do certain techniques more easily. So I use a normal grip when I play this game for almost the entirety, and it makes doing certain button combinations kind of difficult. For example, in Sweep Mountain, I'm gonna want to if I want to do the skip, I need to do a boost jump to the left from here. But if I just try and press B and A as close together as I can, I don't get the boost jump off in time. So what I do here is I swipe my thumb from B to A to get the inputs off more closely together. This technique can be used for many different types of inputs. For example, you could swipe X to A like this to buffer stomp jumps. You could do slide from X to A when on the ground to do slide jumps, which are pretty useful. And even you can use it to swipe from B through A to X in order to do a to do a boost stomp, because the A button doesn't do anything after you boost, so you can do those inputs pretty close together. The last thing that I want to go over in this video are the Wisps. The first Wisp is laser. It's relatively self-explanatory, but it does have a few quirks. So firstly, it functions very differently in 2D rather than 3D. In 2D, when you activate the laser, you get to choose between 45 degrees up and down from the angle that Sonic's facing when you activate the laser. And then all you gotta do is let go of the laser and Sonic will get launched in the direction that the target is pointing. And if you were in 3D instead, you get to angle the laser left or right in the same 45-degree angle. And it's pretty important to note that the starting angle isn't always straightforward, depending on where you are when you activate it, and I'm going to make a comparison to make that more clear. Here in TR3 is a pretty good example. These springs give you a downward facing angle, so if you activate your laser early, this is the highest angle you can choose, and it's not high enough to make it over that wall. But if you wait an extra half second for Sonic's face angle to reset, you can fire it high enough to make it over the wall. The next twist that I want to go over is the drill. The drill can be activated either when Sonic is in contact with a dirt surface, or if you're underwater. And drill works pretty much how you would expect it to. You press B to go faster, and you want to be doing this almost all the time, except for whenever you want to make sharp turns, because Sonic turns faster when not doing the boost as the drill. If you run out when you're in the dirt, Sonic just dies, and in underwater, you just run out. It's also important to note that when you use it underwater, Sonic controls much floatier, so you kind of need to get used to the two different feels for using it in the dirt and in the water. The next twist that I want to go over is spikes. You can obviously use spikes to traverse on walls and ceilings like you were intended to, but we can also exploit spikes to keep the momentum and do certain skips from the spin dash. So for starters, charging the spin dash actually doesn't make you go any faster in spikes, unlike what you might think. So you can tap the B button as short as you want and you still get a bunch of speed. The next thing to note is that pressing the A button during a spin dash cancels it and enters you back into the normal rolling animation. This is important because Sonic isn't allowed to jump during the spin dash, so you need to do a spin dash jump, you actually need to press B and then A twice, once to cancel it and the other time to jump. Sonic still has access to the double jump and homing attack, just like his normal form. Also, you can charge a spin dash to run out of charge if you need to run out of charge, as charging the spin dash loses the Wisp energy much faster than any other way. The last thing to worry about when you're in spikes is to make sure you don't go around corners when you're activating the spin dash, as it's very likely to turn you around. The next wisp that I want to go over is the hover wisp. So when you're in hover, if you hold the A button, you'll rise, and if you let go of it, you'll fall back down. You also have access to the light dash by pressing the B button. And when you're going along the trail of rings, Sonic doesn't actually lose any of the hover meter. But they actually applied this to the startup of the light dash, so if you're not even close to rings and you just mash the light dash button, the hover meter goes down significantly slower than if you were to just hold the A button and rise normally. So this makes a lot of shortcuts possible if you extend the hover meter by mashing the light dash. But to actually gain height out of this technique, you need to be holding the A button while mashing the B button. So what I do is I switch grips and I hold the A button with my middle finger, and then I use my index finger and thumb to mash the B button. There are definitely other ways of doing it. Once you have speed with a hover, you can actually let go of the stick and hover will keep moving. So you could do a two-handed mash where you mash the B button with left thumb instead, but I find that I just like to do the whole mashing movement with my left or my right hand so that I can still be free to move the hover if I need to. But yeah, it'll take some time to get used to, but none of the skips so far in this game require very good mashing, so you can still, I'm sure anyone could get it down to, for example, one of the applications is after this light dash shell, you can do some hover mashing to make it up here. And I have plenty of hover meter to spare. I'm not going to be going over Cube and Rocket in this video because neither of them have any useful applications to the main categories besides just using them exactly how you would expect them to be used. So the last thing that I'm going to go over is Frenzy. Frenzy is also relatively self-explanatory, but I just want to make a few points clear on how to use it properly. So when you use Frenzy, you can break these little tubes in Asteroid Coaster, and when you break enough of them or break enough blocks, he'll become bigger, slow down, and it'll freeze every time you become bigger. So obviously none of that is good for us, so you want to stay as the small form as much as possible because he moves faster and doesn't freeze up. So for example, in this section you would just want to go around the side and just break a few of these so that the Frenzy doesn't actually level up. Before I end the video, I want to give you guys one last piece of advice. I want to recommend playing on Dolphin so that you can have access to save states, even if you are planning on running the game on console like I do. It's really helpful. A lot of the skips don't have nearby checkpoints, and even if they do, you might not have the boost that you need or the wisp that you need to be able to pull them off. So having access to save states will really make that easier. Also, for levels that need boost early on that you would only be able to get an egg shuttle, you could use an infinite boost code to allow you to have access to boost to practice parts that you wouldn't be able to otherwise. So I'll leave a link in the description to a website that has the infinite boost code if you want to use that for practice. Alright, and that's all for the first part of the colors tutorial series, so thank you for watching. I hope you learned some stuff, and if I have any questions, you can feel free to ask in the comments, or I'll leave the link to the Sonic Speedrunning Community Discord server in the description, so you can feel free to join, find the Sonic Colors channel, and I and other community members would be more than happy to help you. And I'll be back soon with the Egg Shuttle level guides, so look forward to that. Peace.